Good morning. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Thank y'all for joining us. As I am removing some of these bots out of the room just to get a gauge of who's with us today, thank you all for joining the call. Welcome to the village. We invite you to take a moment and settle into this space, this sacred gathering space, in whatever way that makes sense for you, from wherever you are joining us from. We appreciate you for being with us today. Gonna get started in a few minutes. We just wanted to hold space for people as people are joining the call. Wanted to hold space for a quick adjustment period, a welcome, whatever you need to be present in this space and adjust in this space. Um, Last week we did something a little different for our welcome. And um we did a meme exercise just to see where people just were kind of feeling. It was the start of April. And so last week people were all of the memes, all of the things. And so hoping that um today is a little easier. So last week we know that our members were all the things. We had people drop in the chat how they were feeling today. And so I invite you to do that again today. If you want to just drop a one, a two, a three, or a four in the chat and just kind of let us know how your week is going, just so that we like to get a gauge of where people are mentally as they are joining us. No pressure. We know that people are joining us from all different places in the world, doing all different things. And so we wanted to take the pressure off of the welcome of coming off of mute. But hopefully people are feeling a little more at ease this week. And so just always want to give people an opportunity to just kind of see how they're feeling, see how the week is starting for y'all. And so I see I see some numbers coming in through the chat. I see we got some threes, we got some ones. Okay. I will say I started my morning off feeling like a one. I had to get a good playlist going. And so now I'm at a good two. Okay, we got twos. Um, so see some numbers dropping in the chat. Okay, I see a lot of ones. Good Lord. Hopefully, hopefully by the end of the day, we have some twos and fours. But in spite of all the ones and threes, thank y'all for joining us today. This is a super, super, super fun welcome that I like to do with y'all. I feel like it's such a good way to just kind of break the ice, especially in the work that we do. The mornings can feel so serious so soon, immediately, as soon as we open our phones and emails, everything and all the things are happening. Okay, we got some tools. I'm like, listen, we had to what do we need to do as the village to get everybody at a two by 11 o'clock? I was just
Zone
saying,
out. Everybody just need to zone out for a minute. Just just ignore your phone, ignore your laptop, and then say, you know what? I deserve this too today.
I deserve to be at a two today. I love that. I am gonna start waking up and saying I deserve to be at a two today. I was saying last week that we need to get a village playlist going that we start the calls with so that everybody can start the calls at a two or at least end the calls at a two, even if it doesn't start there. Hopefully we can do something to make sure that it ends there. As always, thank y'all for indulging and letting us know how y'all are feeling today. For all of our ones and threes, hopefully by the end of the call or the end of the day, you can be at a two. And if not by the end of the day, at least by the end of this week. Um, but nonetheless, thank y'all for joining us and indulging with us, even if you are at a one. And hopefully we can figure out a way to collectively be at a two and a four soon. So thank y'all. Feel free to continue to drop the numbers in the chat throughout even throughout the meeting. And just let us know, continue to let us know where you are. Super excited about today's call. Super excited to have our guest with us. We are being joined today by Nashville's People's Budget Coalition. Super excited to have them on with us to just share a little bit about what is happening in their world, the impactful work that they're doing. While they are sharing, I will obviously keep an eye on the chat, um, you know, for any questions. Of course, we'll have some time at the end of the call for any announcements. And all the things. Do want to take a quick pause though. If this is your first time on the village call or your first time in a long time, welcome back. And again, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm going to take a moment to stop sharing my screen and so that our lovely host can come off mute if they are ready, and get things teed up for us today.
Hello, everyone. We are so glad that you invited us. My name is Theeda Murphy. I'm with Nashville People's Budget Coalition. And Andrew, you're muted, Andrew.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm trying to do two things at once. Yeah, great to see everyone. Thank you for having us on. My name's Andrew, and also with the People's Budget Coalition.
Andrew, we can see your screen. Everything looks good.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, Peter's going to kick us off, and then I'll jump back.
Okay. So, how did the Nashville People's Budget Coalition get started? Well, we started about 2019, where we convened a group of people um, to talk about the idea of Invest Divest and what that would mean for organizing in Nashville. So Invest Divest is a framework, um, a way of looking at public goods and public and budgeting, um, that frames a budget as a list of priorities that a community has. So the organization itself is a member-led organization. So we have members, and the members and our purpose, or the thing that we work on, is educating and organizing and creating safe communities. So as I've said about Invest Divest, it's about conceptualizing the budget and looking at the priorities that a community has. So is the priority of the community giving everyone in the community what they need, prioritizing to make sure that people get what they need, or is the priority to punish and jail people? So I think we can go to the next slide. So we have we have a staff. Staff is basically Andrew. who's working part-time. And then we have a wonderful, wonderful staff of canvassers who have been doing our outreach for the past two budget seasons. And they've really been doing a phenomenal job of getting the word out about Nashville's people's budget and bringing more people in and bringing more members in, bringing in more engagement from the community. So basically, as we think about a budget as a document that shows the priorities of a community, we one of the first things we did in 2019 and in 2020, I mean in 2020 and 2021, was do public surveys, and then last year also was do public surveys where we ask people, what would you like to see your money go for? What are the things that are that you think your tax money should be going for? And overwhelmingly, people put housing as the top priority. Everybody is feeling the pinch of housing right now. And so across all of our surveys over the years that we've been doing them, housing remains the top priority. And then the second priority is to have non-police community safety. To think about community safety as not being a job of the police and as of not being about jailing people and incarcerating people and punishing people. And then the third thing is more democratic governance. So that includes participatory budgeting, which if you live in Nashville, you might have heard about participatory budgeting. Well, that was a term that originated from us based in the concept of invest, divest, investing in people and divesting from policing and courts. And it's not just about budgeting. We want to see across the board more community participation in all aspects of governance.
Thanks, Theeda. So to pick up where we are in the last year or two, as Theeda mentioned, building on what we've heard loud and clear for many, many years now, not only from our own outreach, but every time we go to a budget hearing or a council meeting, you hear the same thing from anyone who goes, which is to ask for, really to beg for crumbs, at least from the table of plenty that is our city budget, in the form of housing that allows people to stay and not be displaced, city workers, teachers, everyone, and to have safety resources that aren't just dependent upon our traditional conceptions of public safety that is largely reactionary in nature as opposed to preventative, which we'll talk about more. Um, but yeah, in 2024 and five, we allow ourselves to dream and vision in big ways and to set goals. And so we did lots of outreach, as Theeda mentioned, door to door canvassing in neighborhoods across the city, starting with East and North Nashville, um, and our surveys and tabling at events, community events, and phone banking, etc. Because we really believe that if we want to have a city that is more participatory in nature, meaning that everyday people have the power to help decide the use of our money and the use of our resources and how our city runs, then we need to model that too as an organization. And so that's why we spend so much of our energy going out to people to hear what they want and what their priorities are. And so we had a campaign last year that was a campaign where we asked the city to move $1 million toward a new form of housing that's actually a pretty old form of housing, just one that's new to Nashville, called social housing, which I'll talk more about in just a moment. And then more resources for community safety that isn't dependent upon police and jails and courts. And the outcome of that last year was that the city said, okay, we're not ready to go all in on that. housing that you're talking about, but we'll at least explore it. So they allocated $100,000 for a study. Uh, Studies make a lot of us, our eyes roll back in our heads, because we know that studies are often things that gather dust on a shelf. But at the same time, we embrace that as okay, here's some momentum that we can build upon. Unfortunately, the city has really been taking its time on that, as they often do with things. And they just recently began initiating that process, but with a consultant that is not the top shelf consultant that is the expert on this issue, but with a different one. So we're a little disappointed in that, but we're pressing forward into this year, which is when we've been doing more canvassing, building on the small win, and continuing to do the outreach and the education to help people understand, what's at stake in our budgets every year and how much we stand to gain from a budget that is more bold and more courageous than it typically are year to year. So a little bit more, as we mentioned, we have these surveys that we do each year, canvassing and tabling. We've had community assemblies the last 2 years where we invite folks out who are not already necessarily part of our circles, or part of organizations or organizing or activism in the city, to come and identify problems and solutions, to talk about what their conditions are, how they're experiencing the world and life in Nashville, and how it could be improved. We also held a People's Movement Assembly, which is a grouping of a gathering of people, some of whom were, I believe, on this call were there, back in early March, where we did the same process, but just with people who are firmly situated within an organization of some kind, to ask the same kinds of questions, assessing our landscape and assessing how we can get what we need to improve life for people in our communities. And then we also hold regular interest meetings or mass meetings where we talk about our work and kind of build a ramp for people to come in if they're interested. We also hold book clubs, on various books on issues ranging from policing to community organizing to direct democracy and things like that. And then our members have also organized and held a number of like art making events where they sit around and make art and talk about issues of the day and things that we're working on. So there's a number of ways that we get out and do work in the community and as a membership. And so I wanted to kind of round out our time, over the next 15 minutes or so, maybe talking a little bit about how we as a membership and we, when we've gathered people in our assemblies, have identified what the problems are that we face when it comes to our issues of housing and safety and democracy, and what some solutions are to those things, the problems that we face. So, as most folks probably know, to start off with, on the housing front, um, the Vanderbilt poll that comes out every year came out a couple of weeks ago and showed that, I think it was 78% of people reported that they cannot afford to buy a home in Davidson County, and that housing, affordable housing as a top priority rose by like 12 percentage points. So it's by far the leading priority for people in Nashville. So this is not just us with our little canvassing efforts, extensive as they are, they don't cover the whole city. But every time you see a survey, anytime you hear someone speak in public about priorities, housing is always up there, because people are feeling the pinch, as Theeda said, and it's really been a difficult time for people who are getting displaced, entering homelessness for the first time, staying with relatives, staying with friends, staying in hotels, moving around, staying with family. We have some of our members staying with family right now, etc. So when we think about how we get here and how this problem comes to be, the way that we see this and the way that we've kind of built an analysis with the people that we engage with in our community, is that the first purpose of housing, unfortunately, in our country is profit. You would think that the first purpose of housing would be shelter, but in fact, it's the second purpose of housing. And that our understanding as an organization is that this is this is a byproduct of our political economy that we live in, which is based on profit as the bottom line of everything, privatizing everything, subjecting everything to a profit motive. That creates a situation where housing isn't a right. It's something that you have to be able to earn and pay for. And if you don't have the means to do so, you're insecure, you're unhoused, you may be even dying early. So this is very much a life and death matter. And what we believe is that we need an approach in our city that puts people before profit when it comes to housing, and really everything, but particularly housing. And so there is this model of housing called social housing, that does remove housing from the private market altogether, or you could say it decommodifies it. It guarantees housing as opposed to requiring, there still is rent for social housing, but it is permanently affordable as opposed to not affordable at all or temporarily affordable. So to tell you a little bit more about what social housing looks like, it is, first of all, top line, high quality. This is not housing that is using the leftover materials because it's poor people who live there. This is high quality housing. It's permanently decommodified, taken off the market. It's permanently affordable by mandate, by law. It's publicly owned or socially owned. So it's owned either by a municipality like the city of Nashville or by a nonprofit that kind of holds it in the public interest. It's financed with public dollars, local public dollars through bonds and city funds. So I'll talk more in a minute about how most affordable housing depends upon federal loans, LIHTC loans, and things like that through the Housing and Urban Development. But those funds are drying up under our current administration. They've been drying up for some time, but they're really rapidly drying up. And so this is a model that doesn't have to depend upon those, and it actually pays for itself, which I'll explain more in a moment. This is housing that's also mixed income, importantly. That's for low and middle income residents, where your income determines your rent, and higher income earners help subsidize the rents essentially of lower income earners. And it allows for cross-class communities to form, which I think is important because most housing is either one or the other, in most neighborhoods, though that's changing. Um, and then also there are forms of social housing that include cooperative housing, which folks may be familiar with the cottages at Drake's Creek, which is the first cooperative housing experiment in Nashville. This is a form of social housing, community owned, partly financed by the city through the Barnes Fund, and includes a community land trust, which is when land is held um, in shared ownership by a community, and taken off the market, taken away from speculation, and never to be sold for a profit. So in terms, whoa, I went all the way to the end there. Sorry about that. Let me go back. Um, so just to clarify for a few moments, folks definitely, we hear a lot about affordable housing. It's a term that we hear a lot. And as you probably know and have found yourself, it can mean a lot of different things, including very unaffordable housing. So when some people say affordable housing, they're referring to things that are out of the price range for a lot of us. Um, but there are other differences between traditional affordable housing and social housing that we're advocating for. And so I want to kind of explain some of those so that people understand what we're talking about. So first of all, as we said, a lot of affordable housing is allowed to go into disrepair or starts in a state of not being as nice. Um, the this is familiar to us when we think about like public housing in the US that originally had a vision that was more closely aligned with the social housing approach, but was allowed due to white supremacy to be able to be moved into essentially concentrating Black and dispossessed people into spaces that have been likened to concentration camps. And sometimes I was canvassing with someone once, and they talked about their experience in public housing resembling that, in the sense of being separated from the rest of a community, the rest of a city. Everyone's experiencing, more precarity and difficulty in their life, and that ends up generating social problems as well. And so it's by design that things are like the way they are today, but social housing is high quality for everyone and not just a few. And so that's an important thing that we don't want to lose sight of. Everyone deserves dignified housing, not just housing that is using the bottom of the barrel materials and whatnot. Uh, Social housing is also it benefits the community and is owned by the community, as opposed to most affordable housing is still privately owned and still benefits private individuals. So what I mean by that is that in social housing, the city or a nonprofit, like I said, owns the housing, and by mandate, by law, by policy, it keeps it in permanently affordable and mixed income and all the things that I described. Whereas with most affordable housing, you know, uh, it is owned still by even if it's owned by a city, there's not really like the participation from residents in the management of the property, where social housing there is. Participation by residents and tenants in the management of property and kind of setting the tone for how the property is run. But importantly, with a lot of affordable housing that is made by grants, it will go to private developers who, once they construct the housing and then are charging rent and everything, any revenue that they gain from that housing goes to their pocket. Whereas with social housing, any revenue gained from social housing goes back into the bucket to create more social housing. That's a major difference, and that's why it pays for itself in large part, um, as I'll explain more in a moment. And also, most affordable housing is temporary. It maybe doesn't feel temporary to those of us who might live in an affordable housing unit for, say, 5, 10 years. It's affordable for that long, maybe. But most affordable housing, like through the Barnes Fund, for instance, only has a mandate of about 30 years of affordability. And so after that time, the rate can increase. And there are many other examples, of course, that we know where a landlord may sell it out from under you, and you get a notice that in 1 month you have to move because there's new owners and they're flipping it and changing it to a higher income level or a higher rent level. So this is a housing that remains affordable permanently. And then, like we said, this is housing that revolves the funds, where it can pay for itself over time, and where you're using bonds and just paying the interest on those bonds through debt service payments each year in a couple $1 million, as opposed to these new costs every year of one-time grants where the profit goes to the developer, as opposed to the profit going back to the city to make more of this housing. So it's a no-brainer in many ways that this is a model financially that makes great sense for the city. Um, they're a little hesitant, I will say, still, because this is new to them and it requires bonding. But the city has A plus plus bond rating, excellent interest rate, and really they should do it. But they're reticent. We could talk more about that. Just as an example, if the city took out 100 million in bonds, they would only pay about 5 million a year in debt service, and you could see that about half of that. And actually, I found out recently this is actually high. 5 million is a high estimate. It'd probably be more like four and more like 1.5 or 2 million for 50 million in bonds a year, because of how good our interest rate is right now, as a city. And then, as I mentioned, communities are involved in governing the facilities and the properties and how it runs, as opposed to just one individual or a corporate office in California or New York governing how the unit is run or how the facilities are run. And Theeda has also been involved recently in helping support the process of the folks over at the Drakes Creek facility, the co-op housing there. And it is a different kind of orientation to invite tenants to be involved in the governance of where they live. It's a different mindset than we're used to in our country, but it's one that I think reaps great rewards and benefits to people once they learn what it looks like to kind of step up and use their agency to help collectively operate where they live. And then lastly, as I said, mixed income instead of concentrated wealth and concentrated poverty. This allows communities to build relationships across difference in ways that we do not currently allow for in our city, and that would really be a benefit to people and to our community as a whole. So in terms of what this costs the city, I started to talk about this, but in terms of staffing this, it would really only cost $500,000. I know 500,000 sounds like a big number to a lot of us, but when you have a $3 billion budget, it's very, very, very small amount of money. And as I said, the annual debt service would be between 2 and 5. So you'd be looking at 1/10 of 1% of the entire operating budget to create this new form of housing that pays for itself, that has benefits that we don't currently see in our affordable housing market in Nashville. So that's a bit about the housing piece. I think maybe we'll jump it over to Theeda to talk about some of the community safety parts of our platform, and then at the end we can save a few minutes for any questions folks might have about any of this. So that sounds okay.
Okay, so let's talk about non-police community safety. Because most of the time when we think about community safety, police is the first thing that comes to mind. We can't imagine our community being safe unless we have a police present. And we believe that's not actually not working for us, that our communities aren't any safer because of police. And when it comes to our public budgeting priorities, we're spending way too much money on policing and incarceration as opposed to things like housing or health or any of those other things that actually respond to harm or prevent harm. So when we're talking about community safety, we're really talking about providing for people. Because when people are actually given what they need, then that's what makes a community safe and stable. So our definition of community safety means giving people what they need so that they can survive. And then that makes everyone safe. So the main difference between community safety and public safety is that we don't outsource our safety with community safety. We know, we look at our neighbors, we look at each other, we know that our safety is invested in the people that we live with, as opposed to enforcing social control and order through violence and the threat of violence, which is what policing is. The next slide. So, examples of community safety. One of the things that come into mind, first of all, is dealing with people who are in crisis in a way that does not involve having an armed agent of the state come out and deal with them. So if you have someone who is having a mental health crisis, it's better to have some people who are specifically trained to deal with those crises involved come out and deal with them, instead of an armed agent of the state coming out to arrest them and potentially hurt them. We also think that having stable housing is community safety. When people have housing that is dignified, that is well maintained, that's community safety. Giving people employment that where they can pay their bills and not have to work 3 or 4 jobs to do that. That is meeting people's basic economic needs. They don't have to go out and sell drugs to meet their basic needs. They don't have to use drugs so that they will feel better about their lives. Those are all components of community safety that provide real safety and stability in the community. So just to give you an idea of what the disparity is between how much is paid for public safety and how much is paid for everything else in our budget. So for every $100 in the general fund, they're spending $40 for police and courts and jails, which is, almost half of that $100 is spent on policing and courts and jails. And I'm not feeling any safer because of that. And it's just doesn't make sense to me to spend all that money on policing at the expense of other things that we know also worked to provide community safety. So we have 20 cents going toward any type of non-police community safety in our budget right now. So currently, $5 million is being sent for community safety. And currently, and the 15 million is what we would like to see for community safety, which is still only 0.4% of the total budget. So we're not asking for a whole lot of money. And in the long term, community safety does cost less than continuing to police and warehouse people. So we've been involved with Erica on the Mayor's Community Safety Task Force, and the Community Safety Task Force comes from an idea that came from our organizing, developing a community-based safety plan. So at first, last year, when we made our proposal about community safety, we had asked for a position to be funded within the Human Relations Commission, which would have a person or a couple of people whose only job it would be to engage the community around community safety using the tools that we know that work. The people's movement assemblies, the community assemblies, the mass meetings, all those things that we have used to get information about how the community really feels about safety and what the community really wants. So we had asked for those positions to be funded, and as those positions are working, they would develop a community-based safety plan, and it would be something that would be constantly, because you're constantly engaging the community. So it would be a living document that would always be taking input from the community and changing as the community changes with community needs. That was how we envisioned community safety planning. But instead, what happened is that we have the mayor who has convened this community safety task force, which the community safety task force are people who are handpicked from the mayor's office. The people that they believed would be the people to come up with a safety plan. There is a community engagement portion of that safety plan, of their process, which is not at all in communication with the task force. So the community plan is happening over, and community engagement is happening over here. The task force is happening over here. And that is not what we envisioned when we talked about developing a community safety plan. So we can talk about how the ideas that we have presented through our engagement with the community have been taken by the city and co-opted. Participatory budgeting is one. So when we started in 2020 and people were coming out and speaking a public comment during the one time when the community does have an opportunity to speak about the budgeting process, we introduced the idea of participatory budgeting. And our idea is that participatory budgeting would once again take those community engagement elements that we know work, the town halls, people's movement assemblies, mass meetings, those type of things, those meetings that we know work, and we would be able to develop as a community our priorities for our budget. But instead, what we got was the city deciding to cut off a little tiny portion of the budget. It was 1 million the first year, and I think it was 10 million the next time, and do it through a process that did not engage the community at all. And so naturally, it did not work. And now when Mayor O'Connell came in, he stopped it. But it was not at all what we had asked for. It was our idea that they instituted without our participation.
Thank you, Theeda. To wrap us up, I think we're just about at our time in a moment. Wanted to let folks know about an event that is very much part of our organizing practices of engaging community directly to hear what people need and want, and to do so in a way that it's not just a one-off amplification of voices. It's an attempt to bring people in and build our power, keep communicating with each other, keep on applying pressure to the city that they can't say no to. So our next way that we are doing that is this Saturday, April 11th, 1 to 3 p.m. at Jefferson Street Missionary Baptist Church, where we're inviting folks to come out. We've got a registration for folks who wanna speak, to kind of let us know in advance, and we'll be in touch with you. We're also having tomorrow night a virtual kind of preparation meeting for people who sign up to speak if they want a little bit of support as they prepare their remarks. Speakers will have about 2 to 3 minutes to talk to those gathered. We also have invited the mayor and all of city council and some department heads as well. We're still waiting to hear back on a number of them, but we're hoping that some folks from the city will come out. And so they're essentially going to be an audience to listen and not to get up and give stump speeches, but to be listening. And they may have a brief chance at the very end, 30 seconds or so, to kind of respond to a pointed question about what they heard. And so we definitely encourage folks to come out. You don't have to be an expert in any of this stuff at all. You only have to be an expert in your own experience. So particularly people who've experienced housing insecurity, lack of genuine safety, or criminalization are especially invited to come out and speak, and they will be accompanied and supported in doing so. So if anyone that you might know might be nervous about such a thing, it's a great chance for people to feel their voice and their power, and to do so with people at their back supporting them. So that is Saturday. Registration, I'll put in the chat in just a second, the link right to it, but there's also the QR code there. And then additionally, we've got opportunities for canvassing. I think I saw Peaches on here, who's one of our canvassers, she is wonderful, along with Halima from Free Hearts and a couple other folks as well. Come join them to do some door-to-door canvassing or tabling at an event. We've also got membership opportunities. Like I'll post a link in there in the chat in a moment as well about what membership looks like for us and how people can become one. Also want to note too, just to clarify, that at the beginning, um, we meant to mention that the word coalition is in our name because when we founded, we were a traditional coalition of organizations that included um, Free Hearts and uh, Gideon's Army and Black Lives Matter Nashville when they were operating in different groups like that. And then in 2022 and three, shifted to becoming a organization of individual members as opposed to organizations. So we no longer have a structure where organizations can formally be a part of our membership, but we will have opportunities for organizations to like sign on to our platform. But mostly our membership consists of individuals. So and then lastly, I just would invite you to share about what we do and what we're up to in our April 11th event with your staff, your membership, your base, your clientele, whoever it is that you engage with on a regular basis. And let us know how we can bring you in or help support work that you do that's resonant with the work that we do. And with that, maybe we'll open it if anyone has any questions about anything or however the facilitators want to take us next.
Thank
I
you, Andrew.
hey, I had a question. Um, on the housing. This is Daryl Caldwell with Why We Can't Wait Inc. On the housing piece, when you all were talking about the 30-year, um, is there financial literacy that's coupled with that? Because all of us on this call, I would believe, know that after 30 years, you should own that home. Nobody should be able to come and pull it out from under you and sell it to a higher bidder. So that's my question to you on that is what is that process and how do we help those who would get in housing like that?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Yeah, I agree that ideally there'd be a pipeline for renting to own. And I think that that's something that needs to be explored more in our city because there's really not much of a pipeline for that. But it's also the case that, uh, so 30 years is just the current 30 years, there can be multiple tenants over the course of 30 years in a unit. It's just that the building has to stay affordable for 30 years. Whereas we're saying a building should be affordable forever, or a unit or a house or whatever it is should be affordable forever. And so the 30-year thing was about what currently exists as a policy for most affordable housing, as opposed to what we're advocating for. But in terms of financial literacy, I think that's something that could certainly be explored as the city, hopefully with groups like ours and others, are formulating the details of what such a approach to housing would look like. But I want to also point to the city that is like the international leader of this is actually Vienna, Austria. Some of our city leaders and council members went there a couple years ago to learn about it. And what's amazing about their housing system, which they started this about 100 years ago, so they have an advantage over almost everyone on that. But their housing, more than half of all people who rent in Vienna, Austria, live in a social housing, and it's really nice housing. So we're talking about people from low to upper middle income ranges who live in beautiful housing complexes with amenities and courtyards and community building opportunities. And it's not really there's not as much of a desire to move into ownership there, I think because their housing is so nice, even when you rent it. So if we make our housing nicer and there's more control from tenants over how the housing runs, then that almost maybe introduces long-term renting as an option for people that's more dignified and financially sustainable for them because they're saving money by paying less and being able to invest it in other things. So that's a little bit of a way that I would answer that.
Can I also jump in and say that our approach is mainly targeting the broken systems and not looking at individuals and not placing the responsibility solely on individuals, because we know that no matter how hard people work, how many jobs they hold, we know that the reality in Nashville is that wages have not kept up with housing costs. And that is simply something you cannot budget your way out of. So we have to address the systems that are driving up the housing costs and are keeping the wages depressed.
I agree.
Andrew, before I was just gonna ask if I didn't see it in the chat, if you could drop the link for the community meeting that is this Saturday. I will be there if anybody knows anybody that would like to be there but maybe has an issue around transportation. Please feel free to email me. And if anybody needs some support there, I'm more than happy to help. But just also want to make sure that we can share that. Does anybody else have any questions specifically for Theeda or Andrew before we kind of move on to announcements? Okay, if not, we will make sure. Andrew, Theeda, is it okay if I drop your email in the chat just in case if anybody has any questions, they'll know where to find you all. Okay, perfect. Well, thank you all so much for joining us. Love to hear about the work that you're doing. Would love to stay involved in all the things. I will make sure that Andrew and Theda's information, how to find them, how to contact them is in our next newsletter, as well as if this call is being recorded. And as you all know, we are uploading our YouTube pages. And so if there's any information that was shared today that you would like to share with somebody who wasn't able to join us today, that'll be on YouTube so that people can recap and just continue to stay involved and learn more about the work that is happening. Again, I'll be there Saturday, so look forward to seeing you both there. And thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I know with our time left, I do want to honor the time and make sure that people can announce things that are happening in their world. While y'all are announcing that, I'll be dropping just some village updates in the chat. I do want to make a quick shout out. Our good sis Centauria gifted us a table at the Nashville Adult Prom that is happening on Saturday, April 18th. The village, she was kind enough to gift us a table of 10. I will drop the flyer for that in the chat, but again, that's going to be April 18th from 7 p.m. I don't know what time it'll end, but it'll start at 7 p.m. and we'll be at the Millennial Maxwell House. So if you want to attend that and you want to be at the village's table, just please feel free to reach out to me and we can get that coordinated. I did want to just make that quick announcement, and all my other announcements I'll drop in the chat so that whoever needs to come off mute can.
Yes, this is the Queen with Peaches. I will be attending an event. Really, I'm a speaker at that event. And also I will be tabling my books. I'm an author from Cradle to Grace. So, I hope y'all come out and support, all the women and the men in the village. And I just want to let y'all know that if I never met y'all will see me at this event as well.
Laquita, which event you talking about? This Saturday or the prom? I just want to make sure we know which one you're talking about.
She's talking about the prom.
Okay.
The prom and the one that we having Andrew having Saturday at the
Okay.
townhome. I'll be at both.
Okay.
Okay.
I have
But
a question.
your table for your book will be at the prom.
There you go. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I was choking, girl, trying
I
to
wanted
hurry
to
and
make
drink
sure.
some with the wrong thing. Yes, thank you for
Okay.
helping me out.
No, you good. I just wanted to make sure.
You correct.
I have a question in regards to the meeting on this Saturday. Would that be a table to provide information there? A table where we could provide resources, like we could put resources out.
You talking about this Saturday's event?
Yeah.
Yeah, shoot us an email. Let me put my email in the chat, and we can see what we can arrange that way, if that sounds okay.
Okay. I have 4 beds available at a particular home
Mm,
that I have, but I would like to put some information out.
sure, sure. Yeah, just shoot us an email and we can work something out.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
I guess I'm next. I'm Harold, Director of Workforce Development and Programming at the Urban League of Middle Tennessee. As you guys know, that this month is Second Chance Month, so you guys know the next 2 weekends there's expungement clinics. Um, this Saturday we have expungement clinic at St. Luke's Premise Church over in South Nashville, over by JC Napier. And then you guys know, and that one's from 10 to 2. And then you guys know the big one that's done by Miss Ellis, Nikki Ellis. That's the 18th, which is from 10 to 2 at Capitol Hill, um, over here in North Nashville, over by the farmers market. So just want to make you guys aware of that. And if anybody you guys know that needs to get some stuff expunged from that record, they can start with the 11th, and also they can make their way to the 18th. So those are the two things that I got going on right now. So, and then also one last thing, our empowerment centers. If you guys go look on our website or ulmt.org under events, you'll see some of the stuff that we are doing out in the community, um, at our empowerment centers, which is the soft skills. We're doing some resource things. And as you guys know, our Park 24 location will be open hopefully the end of this month. So we're going to be doing some things over there. And that's segue for the village. And if you guys want to host something that's going to be there, I have to look at the space, but it's open to our nonprofits here in the city. But you just need to just let me know when when you want to really do something. But I got to look at the location first before I open up the floodgate. So that's what's going on.
Okay, sounds good, Harold. Thank you for that resource. We definitely this summer will be interested in hosting something and may need a bigger space for that. So once you feel comfortable making that recommendation, I definitely would love to talk more about that. Any more announcements before we hop off?
Yeah. Hey everybody, this is Benias of Black Mental Health Village. Always great being here. Um, we got quite a couple of things coming up. I will share. We are about to come upon Black Maternal Health Week. That is April 11th through 17th, highlighting um, the fact that America keeps killing Black women during their pregnancy and postpartum period. So wanted to raise more awareness about it. And so there's a lot of events happening throughout the city and throughout Tennessee that we have on our website. So I'll drop a couple of those things. There's a community walk honoring somebody who died by due to postpartum depression on the 11th. So that's Saturday. The 12th, there's a brunch in Memphis, and our Memphis team will be heading there. On the 15th, we are doing a Black Men for Black Maternal Health, trying to get more men involved in addressing the maternal mortality crisis, learning what they could do in the clinic and in the household to support Black mamas. And so, and then the 16th, we have an amazing panel during our Healing Center community engagement around advancing equity in Black maternal health. Um, and so those are the some of the things coming up uh, pretty soon. And then in May, May 2nd, we're gonna have intergenerational town hall at Magruder 11 to 2. We're still planning that, so I'll give more details soon. And if you're interested in being a part, let me know so we can include you in the planning. May 5th, we got All Children Excel meeting, storytelling and support for men's mental health, trying to get more of the brothers to take care of their mental health. And then May 16th, we'll be doing a mental health day of healing. Um, and so Black Mental Health Village is going to be doing more youth programming, more consistent youth programming, but our programming is not going to be where parents drop off their youth and they can leave. It's more, there's going to be programming for the parents as well, whether it's wellness programming so that they're taking care of themselves, parenting classes and things like that, so that, the whole family's healing together. So our family healing and empowerment program. And so we're excited about that. We just had a new hire come on full time to lead the work. So yeah, those are some of the things that we got coming up, but we got plenty of other events on our website. I just chose a couple that I thought were important. Um, but yeah, I'll drop to our website as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Benayas. Thank you all so much for being able to join us today. One last note I do want to shout out is that the village will be at Kahawa the last Wednesday of the month for a co-working day. It's not anything that you need to RSVP for, but we will drop a flyer about it in the newsletter. So just want to make that unofficial announcement. We'll make an official announcement about it in the newsletter, but the last Wednesday of every month, we'll now be doing co-working days in person. So definitely just make sure that you either mark your calendars for that or just send yourself a reminder that we won't be virtual. The last Wednesday of the month will be in person. We will see you all virtually though next Wednesday. Thank you all so much for being able to join us today. Of course, I'll stay on for a few minutes at the end of the call if anybody needs to talk to me about anything or curious about anything. But other than that, thank y'all for being able to join us today, and we'll see y'all next week. See y'all this Saturday. Bye, y'all. Enjoy the rest of y'all week.